Good morning. Happy Friday. So Friday is Friendship Friday. So my first part of this message is just to say Happy Friendship Friday. I hope you are having a wonderful day. This is Debbie. This is my channel. I'm just starting out and just beginning to put up titles and everything. Some titled videos that are going to be part of like ongoing playlists, and I'll put the first part of the title initially will be about that subject, and that way if somebody wants to see just like certain playlists or things, that's the way to do it. So I do want to go ahead and do my little caveat at the beginning of my videos. I start and stop videos usually when I am started and stopped, so stop signs. Sometimes on the back road, like this is technically sort of like our driveway, so I mean it's a driveway from multiple houses and we live just off of it, but it's like a really quiet, small country road. So yeah, I am on my way to the park. That is, well, I'll come back to that in a moment. So I start and stop videos. Up until now, I wasn't really adding any titles because I'm lazy, procrastinating, working on both of those now. I knew I was going to eventually get to this point of adding titles. So yeah, there we go. Who am I? I'm a professor of world religions. I teach world religions at Hillsborough Community College in Tampa, Florida. I have been teaching there for over a decade. I love it. No longer teaching in person, of course, teaching online. Living in Tennessee, so there you go. It's kind of nice. But it changed the dynamics. I was already teaching online since about 2015, 2016, and the first online courses I helped teach were back in 2005, 6, 7 with Dr. Hardaway at University of South Florida. So there's that. I have studied world religions, obviously. I have a master's degree, do not have a PhD, don't have the money for a PhD, otherwise I would have went that route. But there is money. Money's always an interesting thing when it shows up. My favorite subjects are comparative religions, where we take a subject, a topic, and look at how different religions believe about it, how they have practices, what, you know, how it's understood as something sacred. So we could say sacred food, and talk about kosher, and talk about halal, and talk about, you know, vegetarianism, or talk about the sacred cow in Hinduism. Or we could look at the sacred environment and how religions and cultures as well, how do they interact with the environment? What are their beliefs about it? So that's my role as a religious studies professor. I also do spiritual life coaching. I practice numerology, and so that's my main, divination form. Did the whole astrology thing. Doesn't really work for me. I know the basics. I can give you some general information about your life. I know that stuff, but the way I was taught numerology just absolutely amazes me. It's all about vibrations and not like, oh, you have a life number of 4. This means no. There is, the way I do it, there isn't really much of that. There are some ideas such as your name versus your birthday, first name versus last name, nicknames, your address. Yeah. It can get that specific. So there's that. My own religion, I probably won't talk about what my religion is. No, it's not numerology. I know people who could think of numerology or astrology or any of those things as part of their religion or their spirituality. I've pretty much been the same thing since I was born. But it doesn't mean that's all that I am. So I'm kind of like this weird person. In college, this is how I say it's weird. In college, I still had my personal religion, my family religion, etc. But I lived at a place called Chapel Center, which was Episcopal, Presbyterian, Lutheran, and United Church of Christ, where I did become a peer ministry leader and peer ministry trainer according to both the Lutheran and the Episcopal ways. So I would set up at this thing called the Bull Market, which used to be where USF would have tents and everything in this one area. Well, some weeks I was there representing Chapel Center. Yep. Some weeks I was there helping to get the Atheist Student Alliance going. Yep. Sometimes I'd be hanging over at Crosswinds, which was the Methodist group, or sometimes at Hillel, which was Hillel, not Halal. Sorry. Wow, big difference there. At Hillel, which was the Jewish group, I was part of so many different groups. But when people would see me sometimes at the atheist booth, and then they'd see me at the Christian group, it would confuse them. Or then if they knew that I hung out with and went to the pagan group, you know, it just it confused people. Never confused me, as odd as that might sound, but it was just, you know, it's always that notion of how we connect with each other, so social interaction, you know, having good friends that were parts of groups at times that I wasn't, you know, not really a part of, but that doesn't mean I can't hang out with them. I can't learn from the groups they're in and have fun. And then on the other end, it was, this is how they understand the sacred. And you know, maybe there's something I can learn. So it's always been that mixture. It's like I traveled around with my friend Steve working at Native American powwows for a while. That was awesome. So many stories from that. The one downside about teaching online is if you include any of these stories, then all of a sudden the YouTube is too long, the video is too long for students to really be engaged. And yet, when you add these stories, it is what helps people get engaged. So I'm still trying to figure out that balance between things. I think I will always be playing with that balance because every group of students in the class is a little bit different. Especially from one year to the next, and how students interact and how students, you know, what the pulse on today's students is. So yeah, there was a bit more about that than I initially planned. See, that's the other thing. With very rare exception of saying, well, maybe I'm going to make this video about a specific topic, unless it is for my religious studies students, my sacred studies students, it might be a toss-up. Because the other components are camper life. That will be its own playlist in time. But we live in a 24-foot Keystone Hideout 202RD camper. We've been there since end of August, beginning of September. And that is absolutely its own whole series of things. Figuring out how to winterize it and deal with, you know, poop. Oh, so many videos we can do about poop. Most definitely. Already at that point. Yup. This will not be one of them. It's okay. But yeah, I have all the camper videos and things that we're learning learning from watching other people's videos and slowly joining some of those groups to talk about camper life. And one big part of camper life is our kitty cat Julius, who probably deserves his own channel at some point. But Julius is the kitty cat that adopted us. He found us in Florida, and then we realized he didn't have front claws, so he can't be an outdoor kitty cat without front claws. So he wanted inside the house. We let him inside the house, and he's come up and lived with us in an apartment, and now he's living with us in a 24-foot camper, which kitty cat has a lot to say about that sometimes, or at least a lot to figure out at times. Yeah, gotta make sure we have plenty of areas for kitty cat. Not more than us, but yeah. And there's still things we want to get for the kitty cat to make kitty cat happier. So that's part of our life. And then, as you've seen me driving, I'm in the Great Smoky Mountains area. I am an hour, depending on traffic, away from, Ober-Gatlinburg and 441, and then add whatever time it takes based on traffic to get up to Newfound Gap, and that's how close we are. So, it's kind of awesome. And when I'm not having a health crisis, which I'm going to come back to, when I am not having a health crisis, and when we are not in the middle of moving, or both of us working and not having any time whatsoever to do anything, when those things are not happening, definitely go out and visit the rivers, the lakes, the waterfalls. The waterfalls are about my favorite. Love waterfalls. They are awesome. They are my zone, my sacred spot is at a waterfall. Absolutely, especially one that I can then play in and climb up and just sit and listen to the crashing of the water down on the rocks below or into the pool of water. Yes, okay. Cannot drift off. I am driving. But it is, I love the mountains. And if we do take a trip somewhere else, we will share that too. Because, that's just what you do. So, hikes, walks, etc., we will possibly share. And then, somewhere in between what qualifies as that topic and religious sites is all the sacred life coaching, the spiritual life, and it includes a little bit of time management and all those other things. That's kind of like, I just call them Debbie's life or my thoughts on random things. I've done coaching before. I've done health and wellness expos and events, and I've done a lot of stuff in my life. It happens after so many years. Yes, so many years. And yet, it's not that many years yet. So, there's all that. Which brings us to the last type of main video you will see on here. And it's composed of two parts. Most generally, it's health updates. It is what is happening in the world of Debbie's autoimmune issues. What's happening with this whole new thing that's been going on pretty much since July. What was this thing that happened the beginning of November that just is like, phew, what happened? And, it is going to touch on vaccines. Because that's part of the life I deal with when I have low IgG, and, there's just a lot there to unpack. Most simply, just as a general, real quick, I have hypogammaglobulinemia. All 4 subclasses of my IgG immunoglobulins go low. My platelets are low. My iron anemia is under control right now, but it goes low. My B12 deficiency seems to be mostly good at this this point, my numbers look nice. Like, we don't use the American number system for my B12. We use the European one because, well, that's another talk actually. But there is all of that health stuff. And mixed in with those health updates will be, yeah, I'm going to talk about this. And by the way, I'm also going to talk about what am I doing about my blood sugar? What do I do for hypothyroid? What do I do? I've taken herbalism courses. I have been researching. Okay, so the first 2 years I was sick, 2004, 2005. I didn't really do much studies or research into it. I did a little bit, but pretty much from mid-2005 all the way through to today, exclude 1 or 2 years where I just got tired and overwhelmed of researching because I was getting a little OCD about it. And I actually was. Like, I can fall into a pattern. Sometimes it just isn't ideal. I think I'm past all that, which is good. But I have studied myself. I have tried to research and figure out, like, what to do. I've also gotten overwhelmed and stopped doing what I needed to do. Stopped doing what I knew was right to do. So that comes back to the Debbie's Life talk where it's like, okay, let's practice this thing called integrity. Let's talk about doing what we say we will do, and more so doing what we know we ought to be doing. Which brings up motivation and all those topics. But in the health updates, I will talk about, hey, what am I doing and why am I doing it for different herbs, different supplements, for the gym or lack thereof. You know, what is my complementary health team? What does it look like? Why does it look like what it does? So that will be thrown in there. So this is a bigger introduction than what I did yesterday for the channel. It will go into Debbie's Life, I believe, because it does pretty much cover each of the topics. Now, in between all these videos, sometimes I will forget to label it, but I think I'm just going to throw them into a playlist called Nature and Animals. And so those will include our trips out into the mountains. Or maybe the trips out to the mountains will be different. I don't know. Still figuring that part out. But for instance, yesterday I also had a couple videos of some deer. They were so cute. And so, you know, I think I will actually go back and label those. Yeah, it's a possibility. And one final thing about all of my videos on this, with the exception of the religious studies ones, kind of, sort of, somewhat, this is my channel. It's about me. It's my video log. It is my journal. It is my, hey, I have an ego. I'm going to talk about myself. Oh, and yeah, we'll talk about egos and healthy egos and unhealthy egos and all that as well. Well, I am at my destination, which is 7 Islands Bourbon Park. I was here yesterday working to get this into a habit.